forget doing that. All right, guys, welcome. It's the Wednesday Power Hour, but we're taking over this week, like we kind of plan on doing a few times during these weeks. Let me mute everyone real quick. To talk on a topic. A couple weeks ago, Ashley did Instagram, was amazing. Anyone practicing any of the stuff you learned on that training? Because I have, and like my engagement's going up, so it's been fun. Plus, it also kind of spills over the same thing to Facebook. Last week on the training, we talked about supporting clients really well during their first month, integrating them, awakening them, focusing on the 4 components. And we don't spend a lot of time coaching the nutritional aspect of our program, because we all know it's not the data that matters with that. It's making the decision and coming alongside people and integrating them into the 4 components: community, education, building habits that make the difference. But we miss the part that we actually, sometimes we downplay, because what we have is actually really amazing on the nutritional side. So what we want to do today is kind of have an unplugged conversation. I brought on some professionals. I've been coaching for close to 10 years now, seen about everything. I'd like to understand this stuff, but I also brought on Candy and Casey Mitzel. So they have a huge background in nutrition, personal fitness, exercise. They're basically the gurus of everything. And then also from the healthcare side, I got Don Chow. And then also we have a wealth of knowledge here too, so we'll reference the chat. But we just want to talk about a few things that can come up during coaching people that you probably didn't know how we could assist with while integrating them into our program and integrating them into optimal health, but also how to assist when these things come up. So let's see here. This call will be kind of like open. So if you have questions about anything, put it in the chat. I'm going to start referencing, like we did a poll in the page of like what people wanted to learn most, and a bunch of people dropped in questions. So we'll just kind of go through today. And if you have more questions, just drop them in the chat or come off mute. But I just wanted to jump off. We're going to get to the main voted on ones that people wanted to learn most, like how to help people through a plateau. What is a plateau? You guys will really love this information, by the way. It's really cool. How to exercise on plan, little nuances of like how you help people like when they're in vacation and how they need different seasons. Like the thing that goes along with all the masterful coaching that we went off last week. So I thought we would just jump in and kind of get the ball warmed up with a few of the questions people had, because this, when I had this stuff at first, it stopped me in my tracks. I'm like, oh man, something's wrong. Like, what do I do? And anyone can ask a question. It doesn't mean they know really anything about it, or they can make, statements, because there's a lot of bad knowledge out there on nutrition and like that. So we thought we'd debunk some of that today and show you kind of how cool like one of our components is, the one we probably underplay the most. So Don, I was actually going to kick it to you first. One of the questions that was a really good one was like, what happens with digestive issues which I actually thought was a great one because I haven't had that many clients with digestive issues. Actually, I've had a lot of people have the opposite, because the meals have an extremely high quality probiotic in them. And anyways, so for that, and then the nutrition factor, but we do see it from time to time. So if you have someone with any digestive issues, what do you help them with on that?
Well, I love that question, Brad. And so here's the one thing to also think about, because just like you said, you have people having maybe the opposite. So we'll talk about digestion. We'll talk about what that looks like in the first couple of weeks, because you guys, everybody's body's different. So it's just like, is someone going to hit fat burn on day 3 or day 5? Well, it depends. Their body's different. Is someone going to have a headache on day 3 and really need your help that day? Or are they going to sail through it and like, what, day 3? When did that happen? I don't know. I feel amazing. Everybody's body's different. So I actually love it when I get on calls or maybe an integration call and people are saying like, oh my gosh, I don't know, but there's stuff going on. And is this normal? And sometimes people can freak out about it a little bit, whether it's bloating and gas or diarrhea or constipation. The thing is to really listen to people. And my rule of thumb is I listen to kind of what's going on. And then I realize, and this is just because, 10 years of practicing and listening to the same thing, our program's amazing. It does not cause constipation. It does not cause diarrhea. It doesn't cause any of that. Sometimes those things are symptoms of people changing their nutrition. So raise your hand if you have an animal in here. Do you have actually a dog? Like raise your hand if you have a dog. So this is the example I use when people have animals, and I will ask them like, hey, do you have a dog? And they're like, yeah, I do. Okay. So if you took your dog and they were eating Purina, puppy chow, right? Like run of the mill, yucky stuff. So that would be like, sorry if you feed your dogs that, but that's kind of like eating McDonald's, let's say. if you took them to the vet and you put them on a fancy dog food that's got great nutrition and all this stuff, it doesn't matter if you switch their nutrition right away, what would happen to your dog? Their gut would go crazy, right? It would be a mess. And so that is how I explain it to people, especially if they're animal owners, because they get that and they're like, oh, okay, it's just my system is going to be adjusting to this. So guys, I hope that that helps. And if anyone has any questions, but that's how I like to kind of talk about it, because this has a moderate to high amount of fiber compared to what most people get in their daily not so great diet. And so that can cause either or for people. And oftentimes if they're following the 5-in-1, they're following the Optavia guide, they're getting their water in, within a week or 10 days, whatever's going on is going to adjust and stabilize, and they'll become more regular. The other thing is if it's the opposite, like they're not going as much, like Brad said, well, guess what? This food is so easily digestible and your body is absorbing and using most of it, that there's less waste, there's no fillers, there's nothing like that. They're going to have less happening on the other end. So someone who maybe freaks out because they're used to going, like, sorry guys if it's TMI, but if they're used to going every day or every other day, they may go once a week or twice a week, and that's completely normal, and that's not actually constipation. So anyone have anything they want to add? Casey, it looked like you were like putting your hand up.
Yes. Yeah. And not to get into too much detail, but as you know, like when you're used to having 3 or 4 solid meals a day, like typical size, portion size meals that we're used to as Americans, that's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff going on, and the average American's backed up several days worth. So what we do see is usually a couple of days later type of stuff. So that can account for some of the weight loss too. Just a quick fix, because this comes up occasionally, but the dessert flavors and having a large amount of your fuelings coming from bars only can kind of cause some of those symptoms that you're referring to. So we've just seen in some cases having people back off on some of those type of meals, and adding in some of the hearty choices can definitely help out with that. And then what was my other thing? I had one more. I had to be very specific to what vegetables I was using personally, because there's certain ones that raw vegetables just don't agree with me. And that was, so it's sad to think that, oh, wow, look at all this great healthy food and it's causing these issues. But for me, it was just an individual thing. So sometimes we have to take a look at the individualism of people. And, you get into that classic scenario of, I went out for shrimp last night and I got the flu the next day. So therefore shrimp causes the flu type of scenario. And every time I eat shrimp, I get sick type of thing. So that's just one of the things that people just naturally do when they don't feel well. So
yeah, that's a great ad there, Casey. And I love that we're just jumping right into this topic right here. Why not just talk about the poop stuff right at the very beginning?
You just rip that Band-Aid off. Let's talk about
the Band-Aid and get it right into it. We're all comfortable here. And I think what you'll find here, and where I'll probably bring a lot of this in as I'm kind of like navigating this, is you just got to get really good at asking questions, my friends. Like, that's really what it comes down to. Like, my favorite question when someone has that is like, oh, is that something that's happened to you in the past? And a lot of the time it's like, yes, I have tons of digestive issues. And it's like, oh, okay, great. Like, then we can kind of self-navigate. But then you're not like, our tendency will be like, oh my gosh, it's the program. And it's not the program. A lot of the time this is a normal occurrence for them. They're just reporting to you. So getting really good at asking the questions. But then Dawn, what's also really cool, you had a client that actually does a research on probiotics. Could you talk about how much the probiotics help and the quality of our probiotics real quick? And then we'll move on to the next topic.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That was really cool. So it was right after Optavia started adding the probiotics in. I had a client who's actually like PhD. This is what she does. She actually creates and designs probiotics. So she was like totally geeking out about it. And she was like, well, how can you microwave these? Because, probiotics would be denatured. And I was like, well, gosh, that's a great question. Let me ask. See, even I, like 8 years into coaching, was like, that's a great question. Let me find out. So she got back to me actually before I got a chance to get back to her. And she's like, you know what? I did a little research. Oh my gosh, I could not be more impressed. The probiotics that Optavia uses are spores. And so they can be microwaved or cooked, and they actually release in the gut where they're supposed to be released. So that's why they're so high quality. And because most probiotics, the ones that you get in like the pill form that you put in the refrigerator, 40 or 50% of those get killed by your guts, like your acids in your gut. And so these don't. These go straight on through to where they're supposed to be in the small intestine, and they release there. So not that you need to explain this to your clients, But just to know in the back of your head that you can have full confidence, we have probably one of the best probiotics on the market in the world in the Optavia Fuelings.
Yep, that's great. And we're getting great questions in the chat here. So like some people were having questions, clarity on like, and a lot of these are little nuances. I think the main answer is kind of what we were talking about. The body will regulate. But what Casey was referring to is some of the sweeteners can cause, I mean, and it's, I know, Casey, do you want to clarify that for us? Like, it's not like it's the problem, but hey, you know, if you have the ability to switch to some heartier choices, it will assist. Why is that? Will you explain?
It can just be a compounding effect. It's just a buildup. Like, I mean, if you're literally doing, and some people can get away with having 5 bar fuelings a day without any issues, but it's just compounding. I mean, if you were just doing that, you know, like, you know, it just adds up over time. So sometimes the amount of flavoring can just cause that over time. So it's not for everybody. It's just occasionally. So it's just nice to have in your back pocket that if that's coming up, it's like, hey, just try this. You don't even have to say why. Just switch this over to 2 fuelings coming from this instead of, you know, all 5 coming from this. And it'll probably, you know, they'll think that you're a genius.
Sounds good. All right. Then the other question.
Brad, just real quick. So just on that, I had a client who's been on plan for probably about 5 weeks, doing awesome. But she texted me last night and she's like, hey, recently I've had some gut issues and I've been really gassy. And I said, okay, well, you know, just dug in a few different questions. But before she got my questions, she screenshotted me and said, what about the soy? It looks like this can cause this and this and this and this, right? So it was a screenshot. And I didn't go back to her question. I just simply asked her and I said, remind me again, how many bars are you taking in a day? And she, I mean, like almost all of her meals were coming from bars because I knew that she loved the bars and s'mores are her favorite. So I just suggested, I didn't even hit the topic on soy. I just said, hey, let's back off a little bit on the bars. Let's add a little bit of this and this, and let's see if that balances you out over the next, you know, few days. Because she was doing beautifully the first 4 weeks, and then all of a sudden she's like, So I didn't freak out over her question or over her text on soy, but just dove in and just asked her like, okay, well, what are your fuelings? And I'm guessing we'll probably look right through that.
Yeah, exactly. And like we kind of talked about on the training, like the asking of the questions really solves a lot of it. So brilliantly done, Candy. Which leads me to like the next question that I have for you. Real quick here, 1 second.
The one thing while Brad's doing that is, you guys, nutrition support is a great resource for us as coaches. So if you have someone that has something going on, be like, you know what, that's such a great question. These are going to be my recommendations. So why don't we adjust things for a few days and let me know how you're feeling? Because I bet you'll be feeling better. And in the meantime, I'm going to shoot off an email to nutrition support and see what their response is, because they got right back to me with the bars that actually don't have any sugar alcohols, which are like the chewy ones and the select bars. So if someone's having gas issues, but they really love having bars for the convenience, simply have them switch to the chewy or the select, and they won't have those issues if that's what's causing it.
Yep. And then there was another question that people said, like, what do you say? And this is just really like, just so we can know what to say. Kenny, I think it's a good question for you. You've answered this one time in the past. What do you say when people ask about being processed food? Like, what's your answer on that? I mean, again, I usually go back to like a question really solves that question. But what would you say on this? Because I think the mindset on it is really helpful.
Yeah. So after almost 10 years of coaching, I'll be real. I thought that in the beginning too. Oh my gosh, this is a bunch of processed food. And then I really had to take a look and go, okay, well, what is processed food? Unless I'm pulling it from my garden, there's a processing in everything that we put into our mouth, right? But I start with the question of, so if they ask me or if they're hesitant, well, it just seems like it's really processed. Well, can you explain to me a little bit more what you think processed is? Because to me, the unhealthy processed foods is going to be what you probably find in McDonald's, or maybe the chicken nuggets that you're feeding your kids and that sort of thing. So what I love about our fuelings is that they're actually processed with high quality ingredients, vitamins and minerals. So I feel like there's like everything is processed, but there's a good process and there can be an over unhealthy process. But I ask them, I just ask them, tell me what process means to you.
My go-to on that, Brad, is I just like to use engineered. I really like to use fortified or engineered because they're specifically put together for reasons. Like, we know that Doritos and soft drinks have been chemically engineered to create addiction. Like that is its job. The reason why you have that much sodium and that much sugar in one container is to hit all of your taste buds and to get you thirsty and stimulated while you're also getting dehydrated and hungry. So it's like, and this is the same for Doritos, you know, just, hey, crunch, make more, and keep crunching, we'll make more. They built in the addictive personalities, just like with Fortnite. For those of you guys who have people who play Fortnite in your family, they built in addictive behavior type of properties in the video games so that you actually have reward sensations that will create addiction. So with our fuelings is they have been engineered for good. Like everything that they are intended to do is create good in people's life. So separate from Doritos, which we know there's not a lot of good things associated with that. You know, they can be flavorful and they can be yummy, but we know the end result is never good with that type of a processed food. But what's been engineered to do good and give you the vitamins and minerals that you need in order to stay in a low calorie plan and get everything your body needs, that's engineered completely differently for good and not for evil.
100%. I love that. And again, going back to just asking the question, like I think most times you find out like, oh, what do you mean by that? We'll clarify a lot of that. And I love the engineered terminology. And it's because we are giving people the exact breakdown. And again, all of our meals are all natural. Well, all Optavia meals are all natural. So I just like to kind of point out, like, you know what, it's got it's a protein source. So soy, whey, we use different protein sources too, with all the vitamins, nutrients, and balanced macronutrients you need, like all set up in one meal that you can count on being the exact same. So like that kind of flips the switch on it, because these are just buzzwords. Usually when people ask this question, just as another FYI for mindset, usually when they ask these kind of questions, they don't know what they're really talking about. Like they're just asking questions. Like Casey, Candy, like would you say they're just using buzzwords that they've heard before? Is that something you would? So like us just being calm, collected, and asking the question back to them usually gives them a really good insight and perspective on and how they're approaching health.
I think you're right. I think the answer that they're actually subconsciously seeking is one that you're confident and that you're not. There's no red flags that come up to you for you. So they ask the question and you calmly come back with an answer. It's more about your complete demeanor and how confident you are in the overall program versus any singular attack on any one item. And that can go all the way across the board, from the business plan to anything. How you respond to it is just going to be a character witness, and that's basically it.
Yep, 100%. So let's move into the next topic. So what the most voted on topic, which Casey, I love when you explain this to me, it like changed my life. I knew our program was cool and all these things that we talked about, but then when you explain this to me, it really, it just solved everything for me when I came with the Plateau, because with the number one topic was, what do you do with clients that have slowed weight loss or hit a plateau? How do you assist them with that? And this is really cool because you're going to have clients that do this for a multitude of reasons. Mostly it's going to be compliance, like Casey will probably get to here in a second, or just understanding. Like Don, I think you had someone on your support page that was like, I've been on plan for 2 weeks and I've only lost 12 pounds. Like I think that was a real post in your page this last couple weeks ago. But Casey, could you break down, like, okay, if someone came to you and you're coaching them, or how do you assist clients that have slowed on a plateau? And I think we could probably just start off by saying, like, what is fat burning and why that's so effective in our plan, like with our 5-in-1 plan, and then like how would you break down like helping someone with a plateau?
Absolutely. So basically what fat burn does, fat burn just allows you to stay in control of your program, stay in control of your appetite, mental clarity, all of those positive things that will happen. Because what we really come down to is we come down to a psychological and emotional relationship with food. So if we can control some of those things, if we can take away some of the hormonal imbalances that will happen when we spark insulin levels and then drop blood sugar levels and plummet, if we can get rid of some of those things that will just naturally happen with food imbalance, then we're winning by staying in control, okay? To stay in control of a fat burn, and when somebody said, and this is what's so unique about our program, is that by following the Optavia guide, you're set up very well to be in a fat burning type of metabolism, okay? And when somebody says that to me, what it means to me is under 85 grams of carbohydrates. It means basically about 100 grams of protein. We can get more specific with that depending on individualism if we need to. And then it comes out to somewhere between 25 and 40 grams of fat depending on where the person's calories are going to end up, okay? So when we know that, then what Brad was referring to is it's like a checking account, or it's like a number, it's a math equation, which he's the numbers guy. So he absolutely, that immediately connected. So if you know that if you're building your day with 5 fuelings and you have 55 grams of carbs, and you know that you want to be under 85, then your lean and green is going to have to be around 30 grams of carbohydrates. And once you know that, then you can build your lean and green. Now, if you use the Optavia guide, you just go off the guide, and that's going to give you 30 grams of carbs, plain and simple. If you're building your menu based on other food items, maybe you're at a restaurant, you're not sure, and you use a tracker device, you can just build it up until you get to 85 total grams of carbohydrates. So it's very simple from that standpoint.
Oops, sorry, my button didn't click the mute button there. So that's so helpful. And Casey, I love coming in from the lay side here, because I take all your fancy information. And when I first heard this, I was like, I have no idea what Casey's talking about. I knew nothing about nutrition when I got started. But basically, knowing that our program was like, what? It just naturally hits. Like, the way it's set up is because, like, the reason our program works and it isn't a fad is because for 40 years, it's just basics of nutrition understanding. So fat burning, I love that you clarified that. And what that also is fat burning is your body is depleted its blood sugar levels, right, Casey? And so looking inward for fat, that's why you feel so good in fat burning, because your body is tapped into rocket fuel, which is stored fats. Your insulin levels are balanced because you're eating every 2 to 3 hours. And once you're in that controlled state, it really just is a math equation. So people come to me and are like, okay, oh man, I hit a plateau. Here's the things that I check, because it's just really easy. One, my first thing is just a question back to them, because I want them to not be just solely focused on the scale. I purely do want them to remember that they feel better. They're sleeping better. They're making decisions for their health. They're learning a healthy lifestyle. They're shopping. They're plugging in. They're exercising. There's so many wins. Let's not let one slowed week deter everything that's making progress on. And then the next thing that I like to go back to is I'm like, well, let me know, what do you mean you slowed? And sometimes it's like Don's client, or not, it wasn't Don's client, but the client in the support page was like, oh, I've only lost 12 pounds in 2 weeks. And it's like, okay, that's not a plateau. But people will think that some of the time. The other one is basically, here's some things to find out. Like, are your clothes fitting looser or more loosely? Because our program brings in adequate nutrition and adequate protein, a lot of women that are not even exercise, and men that are exercising can actually put on a little bit of lean muscle mass, and that can offset the scale. Like Candy, you actually did an experiment to this. It was a year ago. You lost what? You had gained a pound because you had gained 5 pounds of muscle and lost 4 pounds of fat. So technically you gained a pound, but you had lost 4 pounds of fat. So that's a benefit. And it's because, and you can actually tell your clients this, like, hey, our program is not just like weight loss. Like ours is nutritionally balanced. So you're going to want to look at the scale differently. And sometimes in cases with my clients that are exercising, I'm like, congratulations, you graduated beyond the scale. You need to not look at the scale anymore. Do your clothes fit looser? Yeah, actually they do. Can you tell your progress pic from the last time? Yeah. Well, let's keep checking the scale, because it's just one thing we can check that tells us data. But the scale is not going to be able to tell you what's going on. And then, and how I can know that confidently is, one, if their clothes are fitting looser, but they're staying about the same, obviously, like we can kind of make an actual connection to like, oh, obviously something's happening. And wouldn't everyone be here okay if the scale was exactly the same, if we were shrinking sizes? I know I would be happy with that. I'd be totally fine. But some people just want to see the scale move, and I get that too. So sometimes you need to ask yourself, okay, you've been exercising, and that's good, because this is what's going on in your body is good right now. So tell me, what do you want more? Do you want to keep feeling good, feeling stronger, getting smaller, or do you want to see the scale move? And sometimes you're just going to have to go with what the answer is. I've literally had clients that are like, I just want to see the scale move. I need to see it move mentally. And I'm like, great, let's stop exercising. Let's get back down to basics. Let's start journaling. And because it's just a simple math equation. So what the thing that changed my life is when Casey said, Brad, once you're in a fat burning stage, it's basically just a math equation. I'm paraphrasing, by the way. It takes 3,500 calories to burn a pound of fat. So you just need to create the deficit. Let's say, like, if you're on plan, you're taking in about 1,200 calories a day. Let's say you're burning 2,000 a day. That's 800 calories a day you're in a deficit. So it would take 3 days. At that math equation, if you guys are following me, I'm bad at math, and I'm bad at verbally processing math, so you guys will just have to trust me on this. It would take 3 days to lose a pound of fat at that rate. And so it's just a math equation. And I had a client the very next week after Casey told me that, was like, I feel like I'm doing everything right. I've only lost 2 pounds. And I said, okay, what's your TEE? And they were like, I'm about 1,700 calories a day. It's kind of what it says my body burns. I sit at a desk. I'm pretty sedentary, XYZ. And I go, great. And this person had been tracking on their MyFitnessPal. And I was like, great, how many calories are you taking in a day? And they've been fudging a little bit. And like Casey always says, is that most people underreport what they're actually doing, which was another aha to me. It was like 1,200 calories. And so they said they lost, I can't remember what exactly, I think it was like 2 pounds or 2.5 pounds on the week. And I just did the math equation. I was like, you're right on target. Like that's exactly what you should have lost. And they were like, oh, great. I just feel good. So once I understood, so if you're hearing this for the first time, because this was like a lot of information for me at first, was if they're in fat burning, it's just the math equation, how much their body's expending versus how much they're putting in. So if I have someone that's at a plateau, I'll share this information with them. I'll ask a few more questions, and the quick answer to it is, let's just journal for the next few days. Like if you get them to journal, one, that helps them be, you know what, like most people when they admit, they're like, okay, I'm journaling, but I was actually having a lot of extra stuff. So like it just helps them focus a little bit more. But also you can make some quick adjustments. I had one person that was in a plateau and they swore up and down they were doing program right. We did a journal for 3 days. They were having some kind of fruity orange drink in the morning that someone said was a good thing. And I'm like, show me the nutrition facts on. There was like 300 calories, like 50 grams of sugar. And we figured it out real quick on that stuff. So again, back to the confidence and asking questions is the main thing on this stuff. Casey, Candy, Don, anything you want to add?
I'm on the edge of my seat because you set this up perfectly and it gets me so excited. Candy's holding my leg down. So first of all, let's not get confused that the psychological part of it is that if people are willing to suffer through some things that they may not need to suffer through if they're seeing the scale move. So we know that in a calorie deficit, people will see body fat reduction. That will just happen. Depending on their why and their reasoning for that is if they start to lose body fat, scale weight, and they're feeling a sense of that what might be falsely accused of being fat burn, just because they're so ecstatic that they're losing fat. Has anybody been in that spot before? Like, I'm losing, so this must be what it is. This must be fat burn. And then when somebody really hits fat burn, they finally realize what that really means. No appetite, in control of everything, that kind of thing. So the couple of things that I want to get into, because the math equation thing is huge, but this also goes with the exercise component, and this also goes with getting into fat burn, is that you've got about 1,400 to 1,500 calories worth of carbohydrates built in, or glycogen in your muscle. You have about 400 calories in your liver, okay? When that gets used up and balanced out, that's when the body goes into fat burn, okay? So for somebody who is completely sedentary, somebody who's maybe like they're on their couch all day long, they just need to be for whatever reason, they might take 5 to 7 days to get into fat burn, because they would literally have to burn all of those calories before their body, and calories from carbohydrates before their body would actually go into a fat burn. For most healthy adults who have to go get the kids ready for school, take their dog for a walk, do all that kind of stuff, it's like 2 to 3 days, maybe 4 days. For those people who exercise, guys, it can be 4 hours to a day, to like the next day that you can be in fat burn if you utilize all of those glycogen calories from your body. So when somebody's on that cusp of just almost breaking into fat burn and they're healthy enough to go for a brisk walk or whatever, send them out with the grandkids to go play swing. Send them out on a walk, and that will basically could just park them right into fat burn. And then they get over that spot where in their brain, it's like your body's last cry for carbohydrates. And that's where everybody's vulnerable spot is. So is like, oh gosh, should I go into fat burn or should I have more carbs? And generally some people just grab, kind of got a headache, I might grab a little bit more carb, and that just extends it. Okay. So now on the same token, when you come out of fat burn, when you decide that you want to have a 35-gram cupcake, 35 grams of sugar cupcake, then you basically have the 130 calories or whatever that are going to, like a gas tank, are going to be charged up there. And then once we lose those again, we're back into fat burn. So you don't have all 1,500 calories again, unless you ate 1,500 calories worth of carbohydrates to get back into fat burn. That's why it's so critical to not be like, oh, I blew it on Friday, I might as well wait until Monday. It's like you blew one meal, you can be in fat burn in 3 hours if you wanted to. So there's that. But going into bullet points that I think can be useful for everybody today would be, the first thing I do for my clients is I say, will you do me a favor? Will you reread the OptaVia guide? And man, what happens is they miss the part about adding extra fat if they have a lean protein. They miss the idea of that. It says, 3 of these condiment servings, and here's what the condiments are, or 1 of the snacks, and here's what the snacks are. Because there's a lot of urban legends out there. It's like, oh, I heard I could do this on program. I heard I could do this. I heard, that kind of stuff. And then you reread the guide and you're like, ah. And then if that didn't have an awakening, then what I ask people to do is, can you just track for today in MyFitnessPal and send me the screenshot at the end of the night of your pie chart, right? And if I may, Brad, let me just share real quickly if I can find this here. Send me this, screenshot this to me, and I will know. And what I'm seeing with people is I'm seeing their fats are way too low. They're not adding them in, or their carbs are way too high. And what this screen basically is, guys, is this is 5-in-1 compliant to the OptaVia guide with 3 different sources of protein. The far right is elk at 7 ounces with added fat and everything that you would do in the guide. It has 3 of our condiments in there, and it has 1 of these snacks, approved snacks. The middle one is with chicken breast, and the one on the far left is using egg whites. But you can see the differences in calories and even in protein grams. And this is an area, now very few people probably have access to elk, buffalo, and deer, but if they do, in some cases for our shorter individuals, I may make a recommendation that I want them doing chicken breast instead of elk, because the difference is like 10 to 15 grams of protein. Now, I don't have to get into so much detail that they don't need to know that I dissected these numbers, and I mean, unless they want to. But if they're just interested in, like, hey, just give me a fix, Okay, switch out your elk for chicken breast. Just like we said, take out 1 or 2 bars and switch that up. And what can happen is, boom, weight loss the next day, because the added protein was causing a rift in their ability to get into fat burn. So, and what happens on this, guys, because I mean, I've worked with a lot of people in our company in OptaVia, and at every level, I'm telling you what, guys, this detail is not there. So when it's tracked, it becomes so apparent. And I can tell you what, Candy and I have been tracking very specifically for the last several weeks. Huh? Stop share, it's fine. And I can only tell you how many times I want to grab an extra handful of cashews, how many times I want to have a couple of bites of my chicken while I'm measuring my chicken. I want to have a heaping tablespoon of peanut butter, or hey, why not just 1 more little bit of the scoop after I have the 2 scoops that I measured? It's so obvious, guys. And this is like the thing that will, like without getting really weird on people, it's like, if you can have this level of compliance, people will just start melting and shredding away again, because they're getting just a little bit sloppy. And I'm saying that because I know that I do. And when I'm paying attention, 5-in-1-ish, as Denise says, 5-in-1-ish. It's so true. Now, it doesn't mean that it's not a calorie deficit. So it doesn't mean that people won't lose body fat and won't lose weight. They just may not feel as good. And especially if they're stalling, this would be something that's just critical.
Yeah, this is so good. So there's a few good questions in the chat, Casey, and then we'll move on to exercise. Denise asked, are there certain numbers they should put into MyFitnessPal, or just log what they eat? They should just log.
I would
just log what they
just
eat.
log what they eat to give you that initial response, because what they're going to do is they're going to self-correct. Here's one of the things that we always said as trainers for years and years and years. Either your client will get to their results, or they will know exactly why they did not. And what that means is that when you supply the education and information, now me telling you to do your tracking, you might not come back, depending on the relationship, and say, you know what? I was totally having 5 handfuls of cashews. Like, they might just have this, they'll tuck it away in their mind and be like, oh, shoot, ooh, Oh my goodness. I can't believe, I'm not telling Casey that. I'm not telling, that's embarrassing. And then literally they pull it out because now they're aware. And 2 days later, you get the text message, I'm down 4 pounds. That's what I'm talking about. So they don't have, you don't have to catch them in an aha. You don't have to be like, see, I told you so, you weren't following program. Because nobody wants to hear that. But what they do want to have is a solution. And I'm telling you what, there's no weight loss boogeyman out there. You are in complete control. The only thing, can we have our personal discussion that we had the other day? I don't know if we can have it.
It's unplugged. Go for it. If it's
probably on my butt, but
no. Well, I mean, we don't have to talk about the butt specifically, but it was like, I'm not like, I want to lose faster. I'm like, you need to decrease your calories. Well, I'm already at this level. I said, well, just so you know, it's 200 calories more than I'm doing right now. And then she's like, well, okay, if I do this, and what it is, I mean, it's literally just coming down to reality that your body might not be burning quite as many calories as you think it is. Okay, so once you rule out the idea that it's measuring error, once you rule that out, now you can easily say, I'm going from 1,300 calories a day to 1,200 calories a day. And this becomes extremely critical when we get into the different phases of coming out of weight loss stage. Because now coming out of weight loss stage, Dr. Anderson has us adding 150 calories coming from additional vegetables. And then we add 150 calories coming from a dairy. And then we add, if you can do dairy, and we'll get into different things that you can add in place of that. But if you don't know where your numbers are, and if you're doing what the national average is of underreporting by 40%, then you can't add 150 calories to an already over 300 to 400 calorie 5-in-1 that is already supposed to be at 1,200, but you're really doing 15 to 1,600. And then now, and this is the problem with performance mode, which I tell people first, you have to know your numbers, because we're not just going to throw a 4 and 2 on top of a really dirty 5-in-1. Like, why would we do that? You're already basically doing a 4 and 2, or you're doing add an extra fueling. So you're doing a 5 and 2 or a 5 and 3 probably, but you call it a 5-in-1 because it's 5-in-1-ish. And then you want to add another lean and green on top of it. And then you're like, hey, I'm still stalled. I told you this wasn't going to work for me. It's like, whoa. Cut out the 40% underreporting, and I'm finding even strict 5-in-1 people are generally underreporting by 15%, maybe even 25%. So we're way better than the national average, but we're still not exactly perfect. And this could be the condiments. This could be the snacks. Oh, come on, it's just celery. I mean, I'm allowed 3, so why not, 10? That kind of thing. It's just celery, And I'm not saying this only comes down to the level of dissatisfaction, if any.
Yes.
If you're not dissatisfied and you're doing a 5 and 8-ish or whatever, and you're seeing results, awesome. You're feeling great. You're making movements. You're involved in the support materials. You're working with your coach in your community. That's all we want, is we just want success for people. It's not about being a nutritional tracking, expert. Yeah, it's not about being that expert. So it's really just about giving you the results that you want to, and then being able to troubleshoot and fix if you're not getting those results.
Yeah, and Casey, so I want to make sure we make room for exercise. And also just when I first learned about this stuff, this is because there's a lot of people, this is the first time hearing it. So not to say that this isn't awesome, because it is, but let's bring it back to perspective for everyone here today. This is how you can know bulletproof confidence that the program works, and how to simply ask some questions and go back to the basics. Again, you'll have some people that are like 5-in-1-ish, but they're loving it. Are they in control? Are they in flow? Are they in community? So remember, the answers that we're giving this question is, how do I help someone that's in a plateau? Well, now you just know, with a lot of confidence background that you don't need to know, by the way. You don't need to know what Casey just explained to know that you have confidence in it now, and how cool our program is that if you just take people back, if their guff is that they're not losing, and we want to still bring it back to their overall wins and their overall health, and ask some questions, that if they do want to see some wins, that it's as simple as saying, let's go back to the basics, and it will work. And for you to have the confidence to ask that question and being like, oh my gosh, our program doesn't work, it's actually just simple as you know what, we can fix that. Let's dive in a little bit. If that's truly one of your things you want to get figured out, let's dive back into some of the basics. I promise you we can see results on this. And you might just figure out that they're doing fine and they're just losing inches, and the scale needs to not be something they focus on. So Don, were you going to say something on that before we move to exercise?
Yeah, I just was going to say like super tangible tips of, in talking to clients on a weekly basis, if they start to not see progress, I start to ask them, hey, remind me, how many of those hacks are you doing? Or I'm seeing you waffle things like crazy over there, girl. And I know you love your cheese and things like that. Let me know how that's going and let's track it for a few days, because what I then get to remind them is if they want to see the true results of what the program is, 2 to 3 pounds a week, things like that, then going back to very simple, very basic, let's do simple lean and greens. Let's check your condiments, check your snack. Do you actually need it? How about let's just go real basic, and I'll say, do you want to do this with me? Let's do it for 1 full week. Let's track it. Let's pull out that Optavia guide. Let's do a clean 5-in-1. And next week, let's see what we're celebrating, because I bet it'll be a lot. And I just ask them to dive in with me. And a lot of the times they're like, holy smokes, I didn't realize 1 wedge of cheese ended up becoming 3, and a waffle here became a waffle every day. And honestly, just reminding people that it's up to them. Do they want to be creative and possibly see slower results, or do they want to be really simple and basic and really get the results that they're wanting? So I get to ask people and they get to answer, I guess. So Brad, I just wanted to put that little caveat in there.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. It's just because when I first heard about this, I was started like my mind initially was like, well, should I know all this stuff? Should I know about the carb ratio? No, you don't need to know that. All you need to know is that it's on point, and there's a reason why it's worked for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
If it does interest you, then cool. But I've never had, just so you guys know, like where I'm at, I've been coaching for a long time. 90% of the time, I just have people log if they hit this scenario. I've never had anyone send me a pie chart or looked at their exact breakdown of where their percentages are at. Just in case you're wondering, Brad, what have you done? I just usually bring it back to what Don just said. So, but it's cool that Casey broke it down so we can understand, like, oh, the science is really there. Like, it's like just reverse math on why it works. So, but let's move into exercise on plan. We've kind of debunked this over the last few years because a lot of people think, oh, I'm not supposed to exercise on this plan. No, absolutely, you're supposed to exercise on this plan. It's just now we're going to look at it for optimal health reasons, and we're not going to do it for weight loss. So, Casey, actually, I'll bring in Dawn first on this one. Dawn, what is the way you like to work with clients to exercise on plan, like as that comes up? Because it generally probably comes up in their health assessments and getting started. So what are the key success pieces on exercising on plan?
Well, I ask them what they want to get from exercise, because people have different things that they're looking for. Some are looking for the mental health component. Some are looking for the, I'm listening. Are they pulling in the mental health? Is it a stress reducer for them? Do they think they need to exercise to reach their goals? Right? Are they looking to gain strength or endurance, or what is it that they're looking to accomplish from it? And then I ask them, okay, great. So since there's something that I love about this program, which is the lifelong transformation, and what do you find is sustainable? What do you see yourself doing long-term? And what do you find joy in? And then I ask them to make a list of those things. And then I say, okay, great. Is it something that you're doing now? Because if it's not, if they're looking to introduce something in, I want to find something that's going to be sustainable for them, that they're going to find joy in, and then we ease into it. So I start off by asking them questions. And the first one's, what do they want to accomplish by doing it?
It's so good. And so before I turn it over to Katie and Casey for some thoughts on this, here's the main thing. Here's the main answer that will solve your problem majority of the time. First, ask Don's question, like, what are they looking to get out of it? Because, they like consistently being able to do something and enjoy and getting more than just burning calorie benefits from exercise is what you ultimately want. And something that people can do long-term is more effective than something that they feel like they have to go do and aren't going to keep doing or do regularly. Like I have a lot of clients that end up doing dancing or one rock wall climbing. Like they just love doing that stuff, or hiking or walking with their kids or whatever, or maybe it's a Zumba class. I don't know. I just want to see their face light up or hear their voice inflection light up when they talk about it. But the thing is just ask yourself this when you're giving guidance. During the first 2 to 3 weeks, they just need to cut in half what they've been doing by intensity and time by 50%. So if they haven't been doing anything, then they need to wait a little bit to start it, and they need to start slow. And if they have been doing something, they just need to slow it down. And I always say, hey, everyone remembers that one big exercise that we did that one time and then didn't do one after. I'd rather you have gas in the tank, feel good, and then be able to do more, because we want to get you into that solid fat burning state and keep moving forward. I'd rather you have gas in the tank than overexpend yourself, be hungry, tired, like make a bad decision. Like that's where we want to start. If you've got plenty of energy, we can add a little bit more, but over this, it just depends where I start with someone on that. So like if people are doing like boot camp classes, and that's one that typically a lot of people are doing, I'll be like, great, can you scale back for the first little bit? Or can you just hang tight till we get into fat burning on this? And they'll either say, no, I need it, it's my wake up routine, or they'll say, yeah, I can, because fat burning is the main thing. I'll just work on helping them scale it back so that they feel good during that and cutting it back by time and intensity by 50%. The one thing I add in there too is, but here's the cool thing, and I get out ahead of the scale issue with them. If we're going to exercise, you got to make sure you take those measurements, and I wanted you to take some before pictures because you are going to be moving on beyond the scale. The scale is not going to be able to tell you what's going on with your body. So like if we're going to do this, we're going to pay really close attention to measurements and how you're feeling and how your clothes are fitting. So that's one way I start off there. I like them to start off slow, because if they over exercise, that can be like, as anyone here in fat burning over exercised, like went too hard, it feels like a hangover the next day. You are hungry and you feel a little bit tired. That's not kicking yourself out of fat burning, by the way. A lot of people have thought that's kicking yourself out of fat burning. It just means that they overdid it. Like they just, the calorie expenditure was too huge to how much they were taking. And that's why we want them to start off slow and have gas in the tank and be able to feel good and not make a bad decision than overdoing and bragging about a really hard exercise. So Casey, that's always worked out successfully for my clients. And the cool thing about it is our 5-in-1 plan supports that. That's basically how I've worked out. I've been on 5-in-1 for the last 6 weeks. I exercise for about 30 minutes a day, each day. I don't add any healthy fats in, and I just basically follow the program as laid out, and I feel amazing. I never feel like I'm lacking for energy with that amount of workout because it's right there within the recommendations. So I know it works. What would you say to anyone? Like, how do you incorporate exercise or anything? Is there anything you want to add, you or Kenny want to add to that?
There's a spectrum. There's a major spectrum here. And just studying Dr. Anderson's literature and the support materials and everything is emotionally and psychological barriers have been so threaded into every bit of the cloth of what we do. And right down to the fact of whether or not somebody should get a body composition. Like the reason, and you'll see more of this in the future, but the reason why we wouldn't suggest that is because it's one more thing that an unhealthy mind has to deal with before they can make a decision to get healthy. If they have to wait for a product to show up outside of their 5-in-1, it's one more thing that they have to order, wait, put money towards, all of these things. It's like, it's a psychological barrier for so many people. And I'm always surprised, even people who are health club members who don't know what exercises they should do in what order and why they would do it that way. It's a barrier to even think that they're going to walk into a gym and know what to do and not feel like they look stupid or whatever the case is. Because, you know, we all know that we would rather see somebody in the gym trying than staying at home and being fearful of doing that. So the psychological part is huge. You wouldn't want to start new habits you haven't already done in the past because of the psychological barrier, okay? Where most of our clients have come from, well, I shouldn't say most anymore, but many of them came from exercising in the first place, okay? So they have already enjoyed the habit. We can just show them how to do it better. And there's nothing better than exercising as you're losing body fat and feeling great. But you will know when you're ready for exercise. Like if you've never been one for exercise, but now all of a sudden you're feeling amazing and you're like, I feel like I should go for a walk today. That's what you want to gear it off of. You want to gear it off of that. But the scariest thing though, is that along with that other national study, we know that people overestimate their exercise by 30%, how much exercise they think they've done. And this has been traditionally what's gotten people in trouble. It's like, because I've heard everybody say, you know what? I broke a sweat today and now I'm out of fat burn. And well, Brad's probably sweating right now in Hawaii, right? So it's like, that doesn't mean he's out of fat burn. But I've heard people say this. So it's like, if you walk the dog and somebody hears, your health coach hears that you walk the dog, oh my gosh, you better go on 4-in-2. And we already know the 4-in-2 is probably an exaggerated 5-in-1. So there's issues that happen just from that. Hey, Witten. So there's obviously challenges from that. So when we look at our exercise routine, Candy's burning about 700 calories a workout. I'm burning about 1,000 to 1,100. Right now I'm taking in 1,385 calories. So I'm basically burning, with the exception of 200 calories, my entire caloric allotment. Okay, so where is that coming from? Well, it's coming from stored body fat. because I'm making sure that my muscle is preserved, because I'm making sure I'm in fat burn. Okay. So, but that's what gets me going. And that's how I feel energetic and excited, is to be in a solid fat burn while exercising. Not everybody's going to be there or should be there. Okay. Just like with, and I think we're all coaches on here, is like, you might have coaches that you want to move faster and coaches who are working pretty slowly, right? There's a pain threshold and a discomfort level that people are willing to go through. Okay. Even in a good fat burn, for example, a good fat burn exercise, there's a certain level that I'm willing to go to that other people might not go to. And I had this conversation actually with a good friend of ours. And I said, most people won't make it to the burn, and very few people will get the pump, but very, very few people will take it to failure. And then what's happening is that person's asking why that person who goes to failure looks the way they do. Just like with our business coaching and everything, it's like, here's the people who are doing this, this, and this, and this, and that's why they're where they are. And here's the person who's barely getting to the uncomfortable level, and that's why they're where they are. So there's all levels of spectrums on this, but I would say whatever that person feels comfortable doing, whatever keeps them consistent, that's what they want to do. And this whole process can be from weight loss phase to the next phase, to the next phase, and that could include just weight loss only while we're going, like body fat reduction only with no exercise. And then as somebody feels good, they added walking. And then as somebody feels good, they added maybe a jazzercise class. And then they started adding a CrossFit class. And then they added hiking a mountain. And then they add, so there's all of these steps in between, and you just walk alongside wherever that person wants to take their journey.
So good. I love it. So a lot of people I'm looking on here right now are really good at this, at what we're doing here. So I think that's really helpful to understand where to start out with people and why, and just basically asking questions. And again, just if you are going to start exercising, get out ahead of it with asking these questions and setting them up for success, asking what they want from it, and reminding them of those basic things. Which, another thing, as we wrap up here, Casey, because we have a couple minutes left, want to hit just like other nutrition plans and helping transition. But just real quick, because during exercise, there's something that we don't recommend as coaches that people can do. As optavia coaches, we're not saying you can do this, but there's a thing called branch chains that are pretty well known about, and they assist in with if someone who's on our plan exercising. Can you explain what those are and why they assist with someone that's exercising on plan? Again, reminding people that they're going to have to pay attention to how they feel, their energy levels, all other aspects of their health, and not pay attention to the scale as much. But what do branch chains do for someone that's following our 5-in-1 plan and working out? Like, why is it a benefit to already
the three main amino acids that are actually in the muscle cell themselves in high concentration are your branch chain amino acids. So leucine, isoleucine, and valine. You don't need to know that. You won't be tested. You won't be graded on that. But basically what happens, if those are present at high levels, you can preserve lean body mass. Now, we already know that there's a level of preservation that's going on with being in fat burn or being in ketosis. So I would always, this is a big one that comes up, so I just want to hit this one, because people always say, well, I don't want to lose my muscle mass. If you don't want to lose your muscle mass, follow the 5-in-1 perfectly, because that puts you in a ketosis so that you protect your muscle mass. The gray area is the area where you could put your muscle at risk, because if your carbohydrates are just enough to keep you out of fat burn, but not enough to actually give you the anabolic effect that carbohydrates give you, that with the insulin and everything, then you're in kind of like in no man's land, and you will potentially lose lean body mass. Now, after the age of 30, exercising adults or non-exercising adults have the process of lean body mass breakdown, right? And if we can prevent that, we can prevent a lot of ongoing issues with metabolism and with injuries and broken hips in the future and all this other kind of stuff, because if the lean body mass is preserved, we're in very, very good hands with being able to stay in control. Now, with high levels of leucine, basically it sends a signal to your brain. It's called mTOR, and it actually tells your body you've been fed. Okay. Imagine having all of the nutrients that you have in 5-in-1. So all the vitamins and minerals are there, and you have perfect amount of calories coming in from stored body fat. And then your brain thinks that you've been fed, like completely fed. That's a pretty cool thing. That's called appetite control. That's called, I just worked out and I have no issues with hunger until it's time for me to have of fueling or a meal. If you have that uncontrollable hunger, that's like that one that turns the wheel going into McDonald's, or the one that makes you want to bite and chew your arm off, then you're not where you need to be in your either fat loss, fat burn stage, or in your mTOR creation in your body. So the branched chain amino acids will help prevent that. And it will tell your body that everything is cool. The recovery process has already started, because what your body's really doing is, think about this. You just got attacked by a saber-tooth tiger, okay? And you had to run your butt off, and you broke all kinds of muscle damage because you were running, okay? Your body is sensing, okay, I'm safe for a minute, but if that saber-tooth tiger comes back, I'm going to have to run again. And I'm going to have to make sure I can defend myself. So I'm hungry. Let's repair this body tissue to recover for the next time in case that happens again. It's all about preservation mode for your body. Okay, so basically what we're saying is we broke down tissue, we recovered the tissue, and we broke down tissue and we recovered the, so we're just getting stronger and stronger after every workout or after every muscle breakdown, so that we don't have the risk of your body sensing that it needs to fix anything, falsely or otherwise, that it needs to fix it. And then by doing that, we can stay in control of our appetite.
1 second, I lost the screen here. Awesome. That's so helpful, and like that helped me understand it at a whole new level. So I think as we wrap up here, what I would say to that is, this is how I explain it. Casey, let me know if I'm oversimplifying this, because I find that here's what I would implore and impress upon any of the coaches here, is just remind them to go back to the basics of program. And it's just a simpler explanation. It's usually the easiest way. So when someone's exercising and they want to take that on, I usually say, great. That's the benefit of 5-in-1. You're going to be getting all the nutrition you need. You're going to be getting all the protein you need. Like, it's going to preserve your muscles. There's something that a few people generally take. Are you familiar with branched chain amino acids? Some people mostly are aware with it. And I'll just say, take those along with your workouts. They assist with muscle recuperation, additional muscle protection, and it helps you feel a little bit more full while you're exercising. Again, not the game changer. The game changer, like Casey said, is the nutrition factor that we're doing, but it's something that assists with it. So I just keep it very generic, because I'm not a branched chain coach. I just suggest it if they're bringing on working out. And I just suggest, like, hey, start paying attention to how you feel, measurements, and how your clothes are fitting, because you're going to be doing, like, you're going to be graduated to high levels of health.
Brad, one more point with that is, I have to simplify it. I just say it's protein insurance, okay, or muscle insurance. Yeah. And what that means is that there's no calories attached to it. Actually, there's 5 calories because it's complicated to explain, but it's basically protein calories. There's 5 of them, and it's an assimilated protein that can happen. So your body will make up to 15 grams of protein in the event that it needs it. If it doesn't need it, it just sloughs it off. So it's zero. So it's essentially low calorie, or 5 calories, or 0 calories of protein insurance. In order to get that same effect, you would have to have like 30 or 40 more grams of protein, which is also a couple hundred extra calories. So this is the perfect solution for somebody who's on a low calorie nutrition plan that wants the recovery process to happen rapidly, so they can work out again the next day or the day after, or just feel good without feeling the breakdown.
Yeah, in case we just hit 11 o'clock, so I want to make sure I hit it. I hit this and wrap this up pretty well. But just a couple of last question is the branch chains itself have directions on it around how to drink them around a workout. But Casey, someone asked in the chat, do you take them on only days that you're working out, or on also days that you're not working out? Essentially, is the question.
I take them every day. Because it's actually recommended for anybody over the age of 30, 35, even non-exercisers, and especially people who are moving into their 60s, 70s, and 80s. It'd be recommended. I mean, if my grandfather was still alive, I'd be pumping this stuff into him every single day.
Yeah. So again, let's make sure that we don't get over focused on this. We've all done really well. Most of us probably did plan, lost weight, had great success, changed their health, completely amazingly changed their life without branch chain. Just add them in. The directions are on the box of any one you get. But yeah, you can take them more than just on days that you're not working out. So anyone has specific, or Angie has a specific brand. Casey, I know you're a fan of .fit, because just like why you recommend our program and the history behind it is you recommend .fit because it's scientifically proven and the ingredients are actually tested at high levels. So as we wrap up here today on this, and then sorry, there was one more question in the chat. When people are working out on plan, do they need to add healthy fats? The quick answer to that, and I'll just answer that really quick, and we can do a part 2 of this if we need to later on, or you can reach out to your support team, is you can add healthy fats because it's extra calories to handle the extra amount of activity. Your body already recognizes fat as a fuel source because you're in fat burning. You're burning your own fat. What I have found, just personally, and a few of the people I've coached, they just need to follow the guide because most people aren't doing their healthy fats correctly as far as the guide goes. So if I just focus on doing 5-in-1 and doing the exact correct amount of healthy fats based on my day, if I just actually, how about this? If I just follow plan and I take my branch chains and I work out hard for like 30 minutes, I feel amazing. I don't have to add anything in there. That's just my own personal experience, and that's been the experience for a bunch of guys about my size. A lot of people think you're like, oh, do they need to add healthy fats in there? I haven't noticed the need to, but it is an option. You can do. Casey, you want to add anything to it? I just noticed that I haven't need to if I'm getting the proper healthy amount of fats in it each day.
It would come down to calorie based. It would not be, if you've got body fat on your body, you're good. Like anybody who's got body fat, they're good. You'd have to be under probably 18% body fat for females and probably under 10% body fat for guys before there'd be any kind of risk to add more.
Perfect. And then, so the last wrap up here is that I'll say we'll probably just do another part 2 because like the chat has been blowing up. Hopefully this has been helpful for you guys. And if anything, again, the thing to take away from this is like, man, we don't need to know all this stuff, but man, we've got it covered. We have got this like secret weapon. Is just remembering that ultimate health and healthy practices is the win. So if you're doing this, most of the time, by the time people hit transition, I just move them right into a 4-2 or a 3-3 because they're already getting good exercise. Now they just need to bring their calorie intake up to what their calorie output is and continue fueling 6 times a day, continue being healthy. Sometimes, I basically give them the 2 options, but hey, you know what, just so we wrap a pretty bow on this, we'll come back to this topic on another day. It's because it's the exact same thing as if someone goes on vacation or says that they need a break or that they just can't be super focused right now. Great. What would you like to focus on? Which plan would you like to utilize to continue? I mean, what ultimately is their focus of their health? And then let's just work backwards, because if you just focus on eating 6 times a day, you can use any one of our plans to help them keep going on track. And if you ask enough questions when someone's like that, this is the old Ashley Miller trick. Most time people just talk themselves back into like, man, I had a temporary lapse of insanity here. I want my goal. Let's do 5-in-1. Why would I do 4-2 or 3-3? I'm already going to be focusing. Why wouldn't I just do the thing that's going to get me my goal? So just if there's anything to take away from all this nerdy information that I hope you guys enjoyed, is that just ask a lot of questions and just really encourage your clients to focus on the overall win. So thank you, Candy. Thank you, Casey. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, everyone in the chat. And just thank you all for that are just proponents of this and want to learn it at the next level. The recording will be up. And if you have more questions, utilize your support team. But it sounds like we'll probably do another one of these down the line because this was really helpful for a lot of people. So, all right, you guys, have a great day. Thank you, Candy, Casey. Thank you, Dawn. All right, guys, let's go change more lives.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, everybody.